Hello students, welcome to another wonderful time. In our previous class, we took a look at harmful substances. In this lesson, we are going to be looking at meaning and consequences of drug abuse. By the end of this class, you should be able to define the term drug abuse. You should also be able to list some of the consequences of drug abuse. You also should be able to list some ways in which drug abuse can be curtailed or curbed in our society. Let us first of all start by looking at the term drug abuse. Drugs are substances other than food which, when taken, can change or alter the body function or makeup of an individual. It's a substance that people use for the sake of their physical and mental effects. It is any chemical or natural substances that interact with the body system. Drugs may be classified into any of the following categories. We have the legal drugs. Legal drugs are drugs that an individual is allowed to take. They are prescribed by a doctor or any qualified health practitioner and can usually be purchased over the counter. Socially acceptable drugs. Socially acceptable drugs are drugs that are prescribed by doctors and are legally circulated throughout the community. Illegal drugs. Illegal drugs are drugs or substances which an individual by law is not allowed to possess, use, or distribute. They have control on them by the government, and people are not allowed to have access to them. Counterfeit drugs. The term counterfeit drug may be used to describe drug made by someone other than the genuine manufacturer by copying or imitating an original product without any authority or right, with a view to deceive or defraud the public. Meaning of drug abuse. Drug abuse is the indiscriminate use of drugs without the advice or prescription of a qualified doctor/pharmacist. It is the consumption or use of drug substance without a doctor's prescription. The following practice can be referred to as drug abuse: buying and taking drugs from unauthorized source, buses, bus stop, markets, roadside hawkers, supermarket, etc. So when you do any of this, it could be seen as drug abuse, because the only way it can be regarded as the proper way is to ensure that that prescription was given you by a doctor. Another one is self-medication, using of drugs without doctor's prescription. So when you use a drug without doctor prescription, you are applying what is called self-medication. It's also known as drug abuse. Taking quantities less than what is prescribed by the doctor. When you also get involved in taking quantity that is not up to what the doctor prescribed, then you are also involved in drugs abuse. Taking quantity more than what is prescribed by the doctor. Even when the drugs has been prescribed by the doctor, you must follow the doctor prescription to the latter. You must not alter the prescription of the doctor. So when you alter the prescription of the doctor, is also deemed fit as drugs abuse. Taking drugs anytime not directed by the doctor. So when you begin to get involved, you just begin to take it whenever you feel like. It's also seen as drug abuse. Smoking or drinking alcohol to cause harm to the body. This is also known as drugs abuse. Consumption of hard drugs, e.g. Indian hemp, cocaine, heroin, and so on and so forth, is also known as drugs abuse, like we said in our previous class, talking about the effect of these harmful substances, what they could do to the body when you get involved in consuming them. We now look at forms/medium of drugs abuse. These are the ways drugs are abused by people. Below are the major and most common ways. One is injection or injecting, infusing of drugs into the body. The other one is self-medication or indiscriminate consumption of drugs. The other one is the addition of drugs to food, water, or drinks. When people begin to start putting drugs inside food or inside water or drinks, it is also known as drugs abuse, because you are not taking it in the proper way. Taking of drugs through ingestion through the mouth, that is by swallowing or drinking it, is also known as drugs abuse. The other one is inhaling of drugs through the nose or mouth. That is another form that drugs can be abused. Applying of drugs on skin surface, e.g. liquid, paste, is also known as drugs abuse. Reason why people abuse drugs. One is ignorance, illiteracy. Many people are into drugs abuse because they do not know that the drugs that they are taking are dangerous to their health. This can be as a result of low level of education or the belief of some people. Another one is peer group influence. Bad habits like drugs abuse are learned, and people who move with the bad friends also learn bad habits such as smoking cigarettes, Indian hemp, taking substances or drugs such as alcohol, tobacco, etc. Then bad family background. People learn bad habits from their parents and other members of the extended family. Children from bad homes, broken homes, or homes where either or both parents abuse drug can take to drug abuse because they do not have the training against the consumption of drugs from their parents. We now look at performance enhancement or pleasurable feeling. Many people abuse drugs because it gives them some temporary extra energy. This is common among farmers, truck pusher, footballers, athletes, etc. Unemployment/poverty. When people have no means of earning a livelihood, they are said to be unemployed and invariably poor. When they see themselves in this condition, they become lonely and sad and may take to dangerous drugs to be happy. Wrong social gathering. People who attend night parties or wide parties or visit disco houses or sports are likely to imitate whatever they see people do there. Influence or mass media. People who watch films or videos where cigarette, alcohol, or other dangerous chemicals are freely taken may one day want to imitate what they have seen. Effects/consequences of drugs abuse. The indiscriminate use of drugs has a lot of implications or consequences on the individual, community, nation. Below are some consequences associated with the abuse of drugs in the life of the individual, community, nation, even at the international level. 1 is consequences of drug abuse on the individual. The excessive use of drug leads to restlessness and sleeplessness. So people who involved in drugs abuse, they start losing sleep. They may not have sleep at night, and then they want to even take more drugs while they are awake. Loss of appetite. They might end up not wanting to eat. They will lose all the interest in food. Another one is social outcast, as they are stigmatized. Often the time when people get to understand that they are drugs abused, or people who have given themselves to drugs, people begin to avoid them. Mental disorder. They could run mad, they could start behaving insane, and so on and so forth. Accident as a result of hallucination. They could get hallucinated, they start seeing things even when it's not real, and as such they could even walk into the road and be thinking they are on top of their bed, and that can lead to an accident. And number 6 is unkept appearance. They will just forget themselves. They will not even know how to maintain themselves anymore, because all their attention has gone into wanting to get themselves some drugs. The other one is addiction. They become dependent on drugs. Do not look as though without drugs they cannot do anything. Then abuser may experience paralysis, stroke. People who get involved in drugs could experience one of these kind of sickness. They could be paralyzed, they could experience stroke, and so on and so forth. Then difficulty in breathing. They may find it difficult to breathe. We'll now look at consequences of drugs abuse on the community and the nation. One is that drug abuse leads to political and social violence. So people who get involved, they could also become violent in nature. Number 2 is that it causes lack of cooperation/unity, and so on and so forth. Most of the time, such people are not reasonable. You can hardly reason with them. Then 3 is that it leads to breakdown of law and order. Most of the time, they are not also orderly. When you tell them do this, they are doing another one. So when they even go to a place where queue is maintained, they will not want to follow line. It causes poor performance, dropping out of school. Such, if maybe a student gets involved in it, he will not be doing well anymore academically. 5 is that it leads to loss of employment. So if you are working somewhere and you get involved in such, you could be sacked because no organization wants to get to have anything to do with such a person. 6 is that it lowers productivity in the workplace. Such person may be highly productive, may start becoming very poor in his production. 7 is that it leads to divorce. So husband or a wife who discover that his partner is involved in drugs, he could avoid him and or often in time want to even stay away from him. It leads to increase in crime, e.g. stealing, armed robbery, leading to loss of valuables. Sometimes they get involved and want to even sell their valuable things and even steal others' valuable to go and sell, because they always want to ensure they are able to meet up financially to get these drugs that they have given themselves to. The other one we'll look at now is consequences of drugs abuse on the international community. One is that it disqualified a country from participating in international events or competition. So when you have people, citizens of your country, that are involved in drugs and they become athletes, for example, when they are discovered during any international competition, they disqualify that country from participating. 2 is that it leads to loss of international aid/grants. Some countries who usually was helping a particular country, we discover that majority of the citizens are drugs abusers. They might not give that aid anymore. It portrays a bad image/reputation of a country. It portrays a bad image about a country. So that's why it is not something that is advisable. It may lead increase in world terrorism. Such people may also want to become a terrorist, and that can also make other countries to blacklist such a country where it has such citizens. 5 is that it disqualified one from entering into other countries of the world. When you want to travel out, they discover that you are an addict. No country will want to accept you. The other one is that seizure, forfeiture of foreign assets and international passport. So if, for example, you have properties in international country, it could be seized. You could forfeit them. If, for example, you were repatriated, those property they could take over by the country, the government that you were usually staying. It increased the financial implication of donor agencies. We'll now look at ways to disencouraging or preventing or curbing drugs abuse. The following are some of the ways of disencouraging, preventing, or curbing drugs abuse. 1. Poverty alleviation programs should be created, e.g. jobs creation opportunities for the citizens. 2 is that seeking advice from parents, teachers, doctors, pharmacists, and nurses before taking drugs. Then 3, psychological counseling of the individual involved. 4, the people should be educated on the negative consequences/dangers associated with drug abuse. 5 is that Proper laws should be made and punishment prescribed and enforced against drug abusers. And 6, the international community should work together in checking and arresting drug traffickers / baron. Then the other one we'll be looking at now is constructive use of time, awareness and sensitization programs through drug education. I hope you enjoyed the class. During the course of the class, we looked at the term drug abuse. We looked at some of the consequences of drug abuse. We also look at ways drug abuse can be curtailed in our society. This is all we're going to take for this lesson. Now, our next class will be able to look at another topic. I'll see you in my next class.